The great doors of Station 7 opened with a soft hiss. Hundreds of alien eyes turned toward the entrance. Some of those eyes were compound, seeing in spectrums humans could not imagine. Some were simple dots of black on gray skin. Some glowed with inner light, but all of them watched the same thing. The humans had arrived. Ambassador Park walked through the doorway first. She was a woman in her 50s, small by human standards, with silver streaks running through her black hair. She wore a simple dark blue suit. Her face showed nothing but calm politeness. Behind her walked 4 figures in black uniforms. The diplomatic hall fell silent. Delegate of the collective stood near the welcome area. His body was made of living crystal, purple and blue shards that caught the light and scattered it in rainbow patterns. He had attended 12 galactic summits. He had seen wars begin and end. He had watched empires fall. But even now, after all these years, the arrival of humans made his crystalline form grow dim with unease. A young aide stood beside him. The aide's crystals were still bright green, showing his youth. He had never seen humans in person before. "Delegate," the young one whispered, his voice like wind chimes in a storm. "Why does everyone seem so afraid? The human guards carry no weapons. Look at them. They have nothing. No plasma rifles, no shock sticks, not even simple blades." His facets dimmed further. "You are young," he said quietly. "You see empty hands and think safety. The rest of us know better." "I do not understand." "Those guards are not unarmed," explained, his voice barely audible. "They are the weapons." The young aide wanted to ask more questions, but raised a crystal limb for silence. The humans were approaching. Ambassador Park smiled warmly as she reached the delegation. "Delegate," she said, her voice gentle and friendly. "It has been too long. How is your collective?" "Thriving," Ambassador replied, forcing his crystals to brighten in a show of welcome. "We are honored by humanity's presence at this summit." "The honor is ours." Behind the ambassador, Captain stood perfectly still. He was a broad-shouldered man with calm eyes and short black hair. His face could have been carved from stone. There were old scars on his knuckles, white lines against tan skin. He wore no visible weapons. His uniform had no bulges that might hide a blade or gun. The smile was polite, professional. It did not reach his eyes. His crystalline form made a sound like breaking glass. It was quiet, involuntary, the equivalent of a shudder. The young aide stared. He had never seen afraid of anything. As the human delegation moved on to greet other species, the young aide finally found his voice. "Delegate, please, I must understand. They are just humans, small, soft, short-lived. Why do you fear them so?" Was quiet for a long moment. Around them, the diplomatic hall buzzed with activity. 47 species had gathered for this summit. Beings of all shapes and sizes filled the massive room. Yet somehow, the 4 humans in black seemed to draw every eye. "Do you know the story of 3? Finally asked. "The massacre? Yes, I studied it. Raiders attacked a diplomatic vessel. Many died." "Many raiders died," corrected. 60 of them. Armed warriors of the most brutal raiders in 3 sectors. They attacked a ship carrying 1 human diplomat and 3 human guards. The young aide's crystals flickered with confusion. 3 guards against 60 warriors. The guards must have had powerful weapons. "No." "Heavy armor then, combat suits?" "No." "Then how did they survive?" Turned to look at the young aide directly. All his facets focused on the younger's face. "They did not just survive," he said slowly. "They won. 3 humans, 60. The battle lasted 43 seconds. The young aide's glow faded with shock. "That is impossible." "I have seen the footage. It is not impossible, it is simply human." Across the hall, Ambassador Park was greeting the delegation. Her guards stood around her in a loose formation. They looked relaxed, almost bored, but noticed how their eyes never stopped moving. They watched everything, every door, every shadow, every hand that moved too fast. Humans are strange creatures, continued. They evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day. Predators, diseases, natural disasters, other humans. They should have died out long ago. Instead, they became something else. Something the galaxy had never seen before. What did they become? Persistent, patient, adaptable, and when pushed, paused, violent beyond measure. The young aide looked at the humans again. Ambassador Park was laughing at something I had said. She looked so normal, so harmless. They do not look violent, the aide said. That is what makes them terrifying, replied. A berserker looks violent. A raider looks violent. You see them and know to be afraid. But humans look soft, weak, friendly, and then they destroy you. Captain glanced in their direction, just a brief look. His eyes met for half a second. Looked away first. The guards do not carry weapons, the old said, his voice barely a whisper now. Do you know why? Because weapons are not allowed at diplomatic summits. Other species find ways around that rule. Hidden blades, poison glands, natural weapons. Humans could do the same, they choose not to. Why? Because carrying a weapon sends a message. It says, I need this tool to harm you, but an empty hand sends a different message. It says, I do not need anything to destroy you. I am the threat, and I choose every moment not to hurt you. The young aide's crystals had gone pale. That is disturbing. It is meant to be. Finally looked back at the humans. Every species in this room has armed guards, weapons, protection. We are afraid and we show it. But humans, they walk into a room full of potential enemies with nothing but their hands. And they are not afraid. They have never been afraid, because they know something we have all learned the hard way. What is that? If violence begins, they will end it, always. No matter the odds, no matter the cost, they will end it, and they will be the ones still standing when the blood dries. Ambassador Park finished her greetings and moved toward the main conference room. Her guards followed in perfect formation. Other delegations stepped aside to let them pass. It was subtle. No one wanted to admit they were moving, but the path cleared anyway. As the humans disappeared through the conference room doors, the young aide finally spoke again. What should we do? Crystals slowly returned to their normal purple and blue. We do what the galaxy has learned to do. We treat them with respect. We do not threaten what they protect, and we pray that we never see what those empty hands can do. The great doors closed behind the human delegation. The diplomatic hall slowly returned to normal. Conversations resumed. Business continued. But everyone had seen, everyone had noticed. The humans had arrived, and they had brought no weapons. That was the most frightening thing of all. Pressed her clawed finger against the screen. The footage began to play. She was a journalist, covered in soft brown fur with large dark eyes that could see in near total darkness. For 6 months, she had been researching humans for a documentary. She had interviewed dozens of species. She had read thousands of reports, but nothing had prepared her for what she was about to watch. The footage was old, 15 years old. It came from the security systems of a diplomatic transport ship called the Bright Morning. The quality was not perfect, but it was clear enough. The timestamp showed the exact moment when everything changed. On the screen, a young human diplomat named sat in the ship's common room. He was in his 30s then, thin and nervous-looking, with round glasses that he kept pushing up his nose. Around him sat 30 alien delegates from various species. They had been traveling to a peace conference. A simple journey. Routine. Then the raiders came. The ship shook as the first boarding tube connected. Alarms screamed. Red lights flashed. On the footage could see the delegates panic. They ran in different directions. They screamed in a dozen languages. Chaos filled the room. But 3 figures did not panic. Lieutenant was a small woman, barely reaching the shoulders of most other humans. She had short black hair and a face that might have been called pretty if not for the coldness in her eyes. Sergeant was the opposite. He was huge, built like a cargo hauler with arms thicker than some species' entire bodies. Private First Class Nam was the youngest, just 22 years old. She had a round face and a gentle smile. The three guards moved together without speaking. They gathered the delegates into a corner. They formed a wall of human flesh between the civilians and the door. Then the raiders came through. 60 of them. They were tall creatures covered in bony plates with 4 arms and mouths full of sharp teeth. Each one carried weapons, plasma rifles, shock blades, neural disruptors. They were the most feared raiders in 3 sectors. They had never lost a fight. The leader stepped forward. He was bigger than the others, with red markings on his plates that showed his many kills. He looked at the 3 unarmed humans and laughed. 3 soft ones against 60, he said, his voice harsh and mocking. This will be easy prey. Surrender now and perhaps we will kill you quickly. Lieutenant did not respond. She simply watched him, waiting. We want the delegates, the leader continued. Rich species, wealthy families, they will pay much for their return. You 3 are nothing. Step aside and live. Diplomat pushed his glasses up his nose. His hands were shaking, but his voice was steady. I'm afraid that's not possible. These people are under human protection. The leader laughed again. Human protection? You are soft, weak, short-lived. What protection can you offer? The 3 guards still said nothing. Kill them, the leader ordered. Start with the big one. 5 rushed forward, weapons raised. What happened next was difficult for her to watch. She had to pause the footage several times. Her fur stood on end. Her hands trembled. Sergeant moved first. He did not run away from the attackers. He ran toward them. The first swung a shock blade at his head, ducked under it, grabbed the arm, and twisted. The sound of breaking bone was loud even through the old recording. The weapon fell, caught it, used it to block another strike, then threw it aside. He did not keep the weapon. He did not need it. His fist hit the second in the throat. The third one shot him with a plasma bolt. The energy burned through his shoulder, did not stop. He grabbed the shooter's head with both hands and slammed it into the floor. Once, the stopped moving. Lieutenant was even faster. She was small, but she used that smallness. She slipped between enemies like water through cracks. She targeted joints, eyes, throats, places where armor did not cover. An arm bent the wrong way. Another raider fell, clutching its eyes. A third tried to aim its weapon but was already behind it, her elbow striking the back of its skull. But it was young Nam who disturbed the most. 5 cornered her against a wall. They must have thought she was the weakest, the smallest threat. They were wrong. Smiled. That smile would haunt forever. It was not a cruel smile. It was not even a fighting smile. It was the smile of someone who had finally found what they were looking for, a smile of pure, terrible joy. The 5 raiders attacked together. 20 seconds later, all 5 were on the floor. Replayed that section of the footage again and again. She slowed it down. She analyzed every movement. She still could not understand what she was seeing. Nam moved like she knew where every attack would come from before it arrived. She used the raiders' own strength against them. She targeted nerve clusters and pressure points that only humans seemed to know about. She broke bones with her small hands as easily as snapping twigs. Later, learned that had been trained since she was 6 years old. 17 forms of combat, hundreds of techniques, thousands of hours of practice. Her body had been turned into a weapon more deadly than any gun. The battle lasted 43 seconds. At the end, the leader stood alone. He had not fought. He had watched his warriors fall, one after another. Shock had frozen him in place. Sergeant was bleeding badly from his shoulder, but he was still standing. Lieutenant had a cut above her eye. Private did not have a single mark on her. You have 2 choices, Lieutenant said. Her voice was calm, almost bored. Surrender or don't. The leader looked at the bodies of his warriors. 59 defeated by 3 humans. Some were dead. Most were simply broken, unable to fight. He dropped his weapon. The footage ended with Diplomat calmly walking to the ship's communication panel. His suit was splattered with alien blood. His glasses had fallen off somewhere during the chaos, but his voice was perfectly steady as he called for help. "This is diplomatic vessel Bright Morning. We have experienced a pirate attack. The situation is under control. Please send medical assistance for approximately 60 wounded hostiles. Also, Sergeant requires treatment for a plasma burn. Nothing serious." Nothing serious. Turned off the recording. She sat in silence for a long time. She understood now. She understood why humans did not carry weapons. Why would they need to? What weapon could be more dangerous than what they already were? Other species trained soldiers. Humans became soldiers. Every muscle, every bone, every thought, all of it turned toward one purpose, protecting what they valued. Began writing her documentary notes. Her hands were still shaking. "They had weapons," she wrote. "The humans had something worse. The humans had themselves." She saved the file and closed her computer. She did not sleep well that night. She doubted she would ever sleep well again. High Chancellor had lived for 400 years. His body was massive, like an armored centipede made of black metal plates and thick segments. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had survived 3 galactic wars. He remembered when humans first entered the galactic community, confused and weak and barely able to travel between stars. Now he sat in his private chambers on Station 7, watching Ambassador Park drink tea. "You asked to speak with me privately," said, setting down her cup. "That is unusual for a High Chancellor." "I have a question," replied. His voice was deep, coming from somewhere inside his armored body. "A question that has bothered me for 50 years, since I first met your kind." "Please ask." "Why do your guards refuse to carry weapons?" Smiled. It was a patient smile, the kind a teacher gives a curious student. "Many have asked that question." "And what do you tell them?" "Different things depending on who is asking." Picked up her tea again. Steam rose from the cup, curling in the recycled air. "But you are not asking out of simple curiosity. You genuinely want to understand." "I do." Behind, Captain stood perfectly still by the door. He had not moved since they entered the room. He had not spoken. He simply watched, his calm eyes taking in everything. "When humanity first joined the galactic community, we were weak. You remember. We had barely developed faster-than-light travel. Our ships were slow. Our weapons were primitive. Other species looked at us and saw prey." "I remember," agreed. "Many thought humans would not survive their first century among the stars." And they were almost right. The Empire raided our colonies. They took our people as slaves. A dozen smaller species tested us, pushed us, tried to see how much we could endure before we broke. "But you did not break." "No, we did not." Eyes grew distant, remembering. "Instead, we learned. We studied every species we encountered. We learned their weaknesses, their pressure points, the exact amount of force needed to disable them without killing. And then we created the diplomatic guard program." "Other species have guard programs," pointed out. "Elite soldiers, special forces. What makes yours different?" "Other species arm their guards with weapons, guns, blades, energy projectors. Those weapons send a message." Set down her tea and leaned forward. "They say, I have this tool. This tool can hurt you. Fear the tool. And your message is different." "Our message is simple." His voice was soft now, almost gentle. "A weapon can be taken away. A weapon can malfunction. A weapon can be blocked or avoided. But a human who has trained their entire life to fight, that cannot be taken away. That cannot malfunction." She stood and walked to the window. Outside, the stars burned cold and distant. "When our guards walk into a room with empty hands, They are not saying, "We are peaceful." They are saying something else entirely. What are they saying? Turned to face him, her eyes were hard. They are saying, "I do not need anything to destroy you. I am the threat, and I actively choose, every single moment not to hurt you." Was silent for a long moment. His armored segments shifted as he processed this information. "That is a frightening message," he finally said. "It is meant to be." Many eyes turned to look at Captain. The human had not reacted to any of the conversation. He stood like a statue, breathing slowly, watching. "Tell me about him," said. Glanced at her guard. Something soft entered her expression. "He is special even among the guards." "How so?" "When he was 17 years old, his colony was raided by berserkers. You know what those are." Berserkers were living nightmares, 4 meters tall, bred for war, covered in natural armor. A single berserker could destroy an entire military unit. "One of them found home," continued. "His parents were already dead. His younger sister was hiding in a closet. The berserker was searching for more victims." "What happened?" "Killed it." Segments went still. "That is impossible. A 17-year-old human against a berserker. No weapon could." "He did not have a weapon," interrupted. "He had a broken chair leg. The berserker outweighed him by 500 kilograms. It had claws that could cut through steel. It had killed dozens of trained soldiers that day. And yet he won. The fight lasted 6 minutes, broke both his arms, shattered 3 ribs, lost 2 liters of blood. But when rescue teams arrived, they found him sitting next to the berserker's body, holding his sister, waiting." Captain still had not moved. His face showed nothing, but noticed something he had missed before. Hands were covered in old scars. White lines crossed his knuckles, his palms, his fingers. The hands of someone who had fought and bled many times. "The guards are not chosen for their ability to kill," said quietly. "Many humans can learn to kill. It is not hard. The body remembers violence easily. No, guards are chosen for something much rarer." "What is that?" "The ability to stop." Did not understand. His confusion must have shown. "Anyone can learn to start violence," explained, "but stopping is harder. When the blood is hot and the enemy is falling, most beings cannot stop. They keep fighting until there is nothing left to fight." But she looked at her guard with something like pride. "When that berserker stopped moving, stopped. Immediately. Completely. He did not keep hitting it. He did not make sure it was dead. He simply stopped because the threat was over and his sister was safe." "That is remarkable control." "That is what makes him terrifying." Returned to her seat. "Every other species sees our guards and thinks they must be barely controlled savages, monsters waiting to explode. But the truth is the opposite. Our guards have complete control, perfect control. They can go from peaceful to lethal in a heartbeat, and then back to peaceful just as quickly." Finally understood. The empty hands were not a sign of peace. They were not a sign of trust. They were a promise, a warning. "We could end you," the hands said. "We choose not to. Do not make us reconsider." "What would happen," asked slowly, "if someone harmed Ambassador Park? If someone threatened what Captain protects?" For the first time spoke. His voice was soft, almost kind. "Then I would not stop." 3 words, simple words, but heard the truth in them. He heard 400 years of violence and survival. He heard a species that had been pushed to the edge again and again and had always pushed back harder. "I believe I understand now," the High Chancellor said. "I hope so," Ambassador replied. She finished her tea and stood. "Because understanding is what keeps the peace. When everyone knows what we can do, no one wants to find out what we will do." She walked to the door, opened it for her, stepping aside with perfect grace. "Thank you for the conversation, High Chancellor." Watch them leave. The door closed behind them. For a long time, he sat in silence, thinking about empty hands and the violence they contained. He decided, then and there, to never give humanity a reason to use them. It was, he thought, the decision he had ever made. The grand banquet hall of Station 7 was the largest room in the known galaxy. Its ceiling rose so high that clouds sometimes formed near the top. Crystal chandeliers the size of small ships hung from chains of woven silver. Tables stretched in every direction, covered in food from 47 different worlds. Ambassador Park sat at the human delegation's table, smiling politely at a joke from the ambassador. Around her, hundreds of aliens ate and drank and celebrated the new trade agreement. The air was full of strange music and stranger smells. It was a night of peace, a night of hope. Guard Sira stood 3 meters behind her ambassador. She was the youngest of protection detail, only 28 years old. Her hair was pulled back in a tight bun. Her black uniform was simple and clean. Her hands hung loose at her sides. She was watching everything. The delegation to her left, the group to her right, the serving staff moving between tables, the shadows near the walls, the air vents above. Her eyes never stopped moving. That was why she saw it first. A shimmer, near the table, so small that most beings would have missed it entirely. But Sira had been trained to notice things that were not quite right, and something was very wrong. Cloaking technology. Her hand moved in a small gesture, a signal. The other guards saw it immediately. Captain was on the opposite side of the table. He did not look toward Sira. He did not need to. He simply began moving, casual and slow, positioning himself closer to the ambassador. Guard O was near the main door. He was a quiet man who wrote poetry in his spare time. His face was gentle and his voice was soft, but his eyes went hard when he saw Sira's signal. He began scanning for additional threats. Guard Han was by the drink table. She had lost her entire family to pirates when she was 12. She had joined the guards because she never wanted anyone else to feel that loss. Her body tensed, ready for violence. Then the assassins appeared. 12 figures shimmered into existence all at once. They had been invisible, hidden by technology that bent light around their bodies. Now they were visible, and they were terrifying. Hollow Men. The most expensive assassins in the galaxy. Genetically modified killers with enhanced speed, strength, and reflexes. Their skin was pale gray. Their eyes were completely black. Each one was worth a planetary army. They had been hired to kill 4 people, Ambassador Park, and 3 other high-value diplomats from different species. The banquet hall exploded into chaos. Aliens screamed, tables overturned, bodies ran in every direction. In the middle of it all, the Hollow Men moved toward their targets with mechanical precision. What happened next would later be called the 30-second banquet. Guard O reached the first assassin before it had taken 3 steps. The Hollow Man was fast, faster than any normal being. It had killed hundreds of targets. It had never failed. It failed now. Caught its arm mid-strike, twisted and pulled. The sound of the shoulder dislocating was loud even over the screaming crowd. The assassin tried to attack with its other arm but was already moving. His elbow hit the thing's throat. His knee came up into its stomach. His hands found its head and twisted sharply. The Hollow Man fell. Whispered, "I am sorry," as it dropped. It was a habit he had never been able to break. He always apologized when he hurt someone, even enemies, even monsters. Across the hall, Guard Han faced 3 assassins at once. They came at her with blades, weapons that could cut through steel. She caught the first blade between her palms, stopping it dead. A twist of her wrists broke the assassin's grip. The blade fell into her hand. She used it to block the second attacker's strike. Then she slammed the handle into that one's temple. It dropped. She spun, cutting the third assassin across the back of its knees. It fell, and she finished it with a strike to the base of its skull. Then she threw the blade away. "I do not use weapons," she said to no one. Her voice was cold. I do not need them. Guard Sira had moved to protect the delegation. It was not her assignment. She was supposed to stay with Ambassador, but they were closest to danger, and there were children among them. Young crystalline beings, barely grown, too small to run fast enough. Sira stood between them and two hollow men. "Close your eyes," she told the children. Her voice was gentle, kind. "Do not watch." The children obeyed. They heard sounds, strange sounds, snapping and cracking and the heavy thump of bodies hitting the floor. They heard Sira breathing, slow and controlled. They heard her feet moving on the polished floor. Then silence. "You can open your eyes now," Sira said. The children looked. Two hollow men lay broken on the ground. Sira had a small cut on her cheek, nothing else. Delegate was staring at her. His crystalline form had gone completely dark with shock. He had watched her move. He had seen what she did. He would never forget it. Sira picked up a small child that had fallen during the chaos. She held it gently while it cried. "You are safe now," she whispered. "I promise." At the center of the hall, Captain faced the last three assassins alone. These were the best, reserved for the primary target. They had been designed to kill beings exactly like, fast, strong, without mercy. The first one came at him with a neural disruptor, a weapon that could stop a heart with a single touch. Did not try to avoid it. He stepped forward into the attack. His hand caught the assassin's wrist. He twisted, breaking the bones. His other hand hit the thing's knee, shattering it. The assassin fell and used its body to block the neural disruptor shot from the second attacker. The second assassin had not expected that. It hesitated for half a heartbeat. Crossed the distance between them in 2 steps. His palm struck upward, hitting the thing under its chin. Its head snapped back. Before it could recover, his fingers found a nerve cluster in its neck. The assassin went limp. The third and final assassin was smart. It did not attack. It tried to run. It was not fast enough. Caught it from behind. His arm wrapped around its throat. He squeezed, cutting off blood to its brain. The assassin struggled. It was strong, stronger than any normal being. It did not matter. Sleep said quietly, "It will be over soon." The assassin's struggle slowed, stopped. Laid it gently on the floor. It was unconscious but alive. The battle was over. 30 seconds, 12 hollow men, 4 human guards. When security forces finally arrived, weapons drawn and faces pale with fear, they found a strange sight. Ambassador Park was still sitting at her table. She had not moved during the entire battle. Her guards had formed a wall around her, and she had simply waited, trusting them completely. Now she was calmly finishing her glass of wine. Around her the 4 guards stood over 12 bodies, 11 unconscious, 1 dead. Looked at the dead one with sad eyes. "I am sorry," he said again. "The angle was wrong. I had no choice." Put a hand on his shoulder. "You saved lives, do not forget that." Sira was still holding the child. It had fallen asleep in her arms, exhausted from crying. Walked to Ambassador's side. His breathing was normal. His uniform was not even wrinkled. "The area is secure, Ambassador," he said. Nodded. She looked at the gathered aliens, hundreds of beings staring at the humans with a mixture of fear and awe. "Shall we continue the treaty discussion?" she asked calmly. "I believe we were on Article 7. No one answered. No one could. They had just watched 4 unarmed humans defeat 12 of the deadliest assassins in the galaxy. They had watched it happen in 30 seconds. And now, the human ambassador was asking about trade agreements as if nothing had happened. Delegate finally found his voice. "How?" he asked. "How is this possible?" Ambassador smiled. It was a kind smile, patient. "We are human," she said simply. "This is what we do." She turned back to her wine, leaving the galaxy to wonder. And fear. 1 year had passed since the attack on Station 7. The journalist sat in her studio, watching the viewing numbers climb. Her documentary had been released 3 days ago. It was now the most-watched program in galactic history. Every species on every world was talking about it. The title was simple: Empty Hands, Full Terror. She had spent 12 months making it. 12 months of interviews, research, and sleepless nights. Now it was finished, and the galaxy was finally learning the truth about humanity's diplomatic guards. On screen, the documentary played its final chapter. A human training facility appeared. Gray buildings under a gray sky. Young humans ran in the rain, their bodies pushed beyond normal limits. They fought each other with bare hands, learning to hurt and to heal in the same movement. A voice spoke over the images, his voice calm and professional. The selection process for the diplomatic guard is brutal. Only 1 in 50,000 human applicants qualifies. They are not chosen for strength. Many species are stronger than humans. They are not chosen for speed. Several species are faster. They are chosen for something else, something harder to measure. The image changed to show a testing room. A young human woman sat in a chair, connected to machines that measured her brain activity. On a screen in front of her, images flashed: violence, peace, danger, safety. The machines recorded how quickly her mind shifted between states. Humans call it controlled aggression, his voice continued. The ability to go from peaceful to lethal in a fraction of a second, and then just as quickly back to peaceful again. Most beings cannot do this. When we become violent, we stay violent until the danger passes. But guards can turn it on and off like a light. The documentary showed training sessions. Guards learning the anatomy of 47 different species, not to heal them but to know exactly how to stop them without killing. Pressure points, nerve clusters, joint weaknesses. Every species had vulnerabilities. The guards learned them all. Training lasts 15 years, narrated. 15 years before a guard is allowed their first assignment. In that time, they learn 17 forms of combat. They study psychology, linguistics, and diplomacy. They can kill you in 47 different ways, but they can also discuss art, music, and philosophy. They are weapons wrapped in civilization. The image changed to an interview room. An older human sat across from. His face was weathered, his eyes tired but kind. "This is former guard instructor Shin," said. "He trained guards for 30 years. "What makes a good guard?" recorded voice asked. Thought for a moment. "It is not about fighting," he said slowly. "Anyone can learn to fight. Fighting is easy. No, what makes a good guard is knowing when not to fight, knowing how to read a room, how to see danger before it becomes violent, how to calm a situation with words instead of fists. And when words fail." His eyes went dark. "Then we become something else, something necessary. We do what must be done to protect our people, and when it is over, we become human again." The documentary continued with more interviews. Delegates from various species shared their experiences with human guards. Many were still afraid. Some had gained a new respect. All of them agreed on one thing: they never wanted to see what those empty hands could really do. Then came the interview that changed everything. Commander appeared on screen. He had been promoted after the events on 7. Now he led the entire diplomatic guard program. His face was the same as always: calm, patient, unreadable. Had asked him the question that everyone wanted answered. "Commander, why do guards not carry weapons?" Was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft. "Weapons create distance," he said. "Distance creates mistakes. When I protect someone, I need to be close, close enough to feel their fear, to see the threat before it knows it is a threat. A gun would slow me down. A blade would limit my options." He held up his hands, strong, perfectly still. "My hands can do anything. They can save someone, stop someone, end someone if there is no other choice. And then when it is over, my hands can shake theirs and mean it. A weapon cannot do that. A weapon is just a tool. But these hands, these are mine. They are part of me. They carry my choices, good and bad. Do you regret your choices? Asked. Considered the question carefully. I have broken bones in 47 species, he admitted. I have hurt people in ways that will stay with them forever. That weight never leaves you. Every face, every cry of pain, you carry them all. He paused. But I have also held a child while they cried for their parent. I have carried a wounded ambassador through a burning station. I have stood between death and life more times than I can count. My hands have done terrible things, but they have done good things too. I think the good outweighs the terrible. His eyes looked directly at the camera. I hope it does. The documentary ended with statistics, cold numbers that told a warm story. In 300 years of the Diplomatic Guard program, protecting humanity's ambassadors across a hostile galaxy, guards had faced 847 recorded violent incidents. Deaths among protected diplomats, 0. Deaths among guards, 3. Deaths among attackers, 31. And those 31 deaths were mourned and studied, not celebrated, because guards did not want to kill. They wanted to protect. Killing was failure. Killing meant something had gone wrong. The final scene showed Ambassador Park, now retired, sitting in a garden on Earth. Flowers bloomed around her. Birds sang in the trees. Beside her sat Commander, his hands resting on his knees. Do you ever regret the path you chose? Asked. Watched children playing in the distance. Human children, running and laughing, unaware of the violence that had kept their world safe. I used to think about that, he said quietly. On the hard nights, when the faces came back, I wondered if I had become something wrong, something broken. And now I watch children play. I see diplomats shake hands with former enemies. I see peace where there was war. He turned to look at her, and for the first time in all the footage had collected, he smiled fully. My hands have done terrible things, Ambassador, but they have done good things too. I think the good outweighs the terrible. I hope it does. Patted his arm gently. It does, it does. The image faded to black. His voice returned one final time. The galaxy once asked why human diplomatic guards arrive unarmed. Now we understand. Humans do not need weapons to be dangerous. They need weapons to be safe. And in the cold mathematics of galactic politics, the message is clear. Harm what humanity protects and discover what empty hands can do. A pause. The galaxy has learned. The galaxy remembers. Another pause. The galaxy fears. The documentary ended. Across the galaxy, billions of beings sat in silence. They thought about the humans they knew, the friendly ones, the helpful ones, the ones who smiled and laughed and seemed so harmless. They thought about empty hands. They thought about what those hands could do. And they decided, each in their own way, to never find out. Peace, it turned out, was not about love or trust or understanding. Peace was about fear. And humanity had given the galaxy something to fear. The stars burned on, cold and distant. And somewhere in a garden on a blue world, an old soldier watched children play. His hands were empty. They always would be. That was the promise. That was the warning. That was humanity.